this computer, yay, and we are live. Hi everybody, I am Carolina Cravart-Graham. I am the GA coordinator for Allies for Racial Equity, and I'm joined today by several people who will introduce themselves a little bit later. We would like to do a little bit of a basic overview of what Allies for Racial Equity, or ARE, will be doing at GA this year, and get our members and other white allies prepared for both being at GA and what might come up there, and also for all of the things that ARE will be involved with this year in Kansas City. Most of our materials now are online, and one can go to UUARE.org. That's UUARE.org. And right there on the front page are, in the announcements, are sign-up sheets and booth resources, which are all online this year. We're trying to save a little bit of paper. We still will have paper handouts at the booth. The ARE booth exists for a couple of different reasons. One of them is to provide resources for people who are wanting to either engage or deepen their anti-racism work. And so we have a variety of resources there for people to pick up, and usually have 2 or 3 people at the booth who are happy to have conversations with people regardless of where they are on their anti-racist journey, or whether or not they are on an anti-racist journey. We also have the booth to be kind of in partnership to Drum. There are many, many people who would love to engage with Drum, and Drum will decide whether or not ARE can be of service in that regard. And it's also a kind of a place for us to network with Drum, which is the organization in which we are in accountable relationship. So we usually have, like I said, we love, and please sign up, we usually have 2 to 3 people in the booth. I think we're going to have a busy booth this year, and the more people who are willing to be in conversation, the better. So specifically to this General Assembly, we will be having a networking session. We have a slot in the networking sessions on Friday night, and we hope ARE members and white allies join us. I know we're up against some other very interesting networking sessions, some of which I wish I could go to, but we encourage you to attend. This is also going to serve as a little bit of a membership meeting at GA, and also a little bit of a connection point at GA. We have a couple of different items to do during our network session, so we're excited to be spending that time with you. This year we have one sponsored workshop, one ARE sponsored workshop, and that is Christian Hegemony with Paul Cavell, and we encourage people to attend that. I think that's going to be a little bit of a different perspective around anti-racism, and kind of fleshing out pieces of white supremacy in our history and whatever, that we don't often get to do. So we're excited to have him, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that is also a potential trouble spot. And we'll talk about that later in this webinar. We have one of our partnership projects this GA is going to be partnering with Church of the Larger Fellowship, who is in the middle still of crafting an action of immediate witness. That's an AIW to end prison privatization. And we're very excited about that. And I probably have a little clip from Lori Stone-Sertosky that we'll be releasing later to flesh that out a little bit. And we are asking for ARE members to volunteer to both gather signatures and also to be advocates in the mini assembly and on the floor for this particular AIW, if you're so inclined. I think I said yesterday in the meeting that I feel like if we could end prison privatization and detention privatization, we could go a very, very, very long way to undoing some of the systemic issues that we have. What else? And then Yes, and then we are asking, so this year, yeah, that was our doorbell. This year, excuse me 1 second. Oh, no, there's my husband. He's coming. So this year, we are, where was I? Oh, the schedule for General Assembly this year seems a little bit, um, is different than it has been in past years, and it makes it a little bit harder for us to be everywhere. The booth hours kind of conflict with a lot of like the general sessions and whatnot. And if ARE members who are delegates are wanting to do advocacy and be in the business sessions, then it will be very, very hard for them to volunteer for the booth, especially during like large chunks of time. So we are asking specifically this year, members who are not delegates, if you would be so kind and step up and volunteer for booth duty, so ARE members who are delegates can go and do the advocacy. There's a lot on the table this year. There will be numerous actions of immediate witness. There are 2 congregational study action issues, all of which are going to need focus and attention. And I know there are a lot of ARE members, especially in leadership, who are trying to block out time to do that. So on the booth schedule, it shows booth hours that, booth times that are kind of in conflict with UUA business with asterisks. So if non-delegates would please, please, please sign up for those things that have asterisks. So, or not asterisks, I have to check. So that way it would free some of us up to go and do the advocacy piece at General Assembly. So that's pretty much it. We are going to be talking a little bit later around, or actually we'll talk pretty much now. I'd like to field any questions anybody has about the ARE booth. Again, all of like what the booth expectations are, and all of the resources at the booth are online at our website, uuare.org. If anybody at this point has any questions, I'd like to field those before we start talking about the congregational study action issue. So.
Are you fielding questions about just the booth?
About anything.
Okay. I wanted to know, I know this is the first year they've done the networking sessions, but I was wondering, are they going to be formatted in a way that people can pop in and pop out? You mentioned that the ARE one was going to be set up like a business meeting. Will people be able to come and go if they want to make more than one networking session?
Yeah, I think that that's how they are setting it up, and I think that that is how it will play out. It's kind of doubling as our membership meeting, which is, it's going to be less of a membership meeting. We don't have a whole lot of membership business, but we usually like to have a member gathering at GA. And at this point in time, the way the GA schedule was, there was no other time to do it. So we said we're going to do both and in the networking session, because whatever meeting businessy stuff, usually we'll do the treasurer's report and we'll just say what's on radar and what we're doing for the next year and try and engage people in that work. But networking is going to be more about, is going to be much, much more about networking, and you can come and go as you like. We will also try and live stream it. So that way people can watch the recording later if they wanted to go to another one. There are some really good networking sessions this year. So, any other questions? They're having a conversation about the air conditioning. So with that, I wanted to talk about a little bit about ARE and their work on one of the congregational study action issues. There is one on white supremacy. The ARE steering committee consented recently that we would be supporting that that particular CSAI, mostly because it is much more in line with ARE's mission and the work that ARE is doing, but also because there seem to have been some complications in the process. I don't know how much detail we can go into about that, but Leslie Runnels from First UU NOLA, who is the sponsor of this CSAI on intersectional white supremacy, is with us today to give us a little bit of context and talk a little bit more about kind of where they are with that and where we are with that, etc. So with that, if you're ready to go, Leslie, you can just like say what you want to say, and we'll ask questions and learn things.
Great, thank you, Carolina. Yeah, this started out, we at First Church were encouraged to create a CSAI around white supremacy. We didn't have a lot of time, so we put something together pretty quickly. And in the process, somehow we found out about another CSAI, and they had read ours and wanted to know if we would be interested in combining. And I wasn't involved in the beginning process. I didn't get involved until later. So the two groups, it was actually two churches from Georgia, or maybe even three, that were working on theirs together, and then First Church in New Orleans. They got together, they did some work together, and some of the people from First Church started feeling like they were getting confused. They'd never done the process before, didn't really understand what was going on, and were a little uncomfortable. So I got pushed into it, and I attended one, and I couldn't quite figure out what theirs was really about, or what we were trying to do, because I wasn't in there in the beginning. But I started hearing words that made me uncomfortable as well. But we still, faithfully tried to continue to make it work together. And we were pretty close to the end, and I got a bad feeling and said, I just don't think that we could defend this to Black Lives of UU or anybody. Like, I was not interested in trying to defend it. And so our whole group pulled out, and we wanted to know, could we continue to present the first one that we had already done? Meanwhile, one of the other groups in Georgia also pulled out because they were also concerned about accountability and kind of where it was going. So that was left one group in Georgia that decided to go ahead, and they took the combined CSA that we'd all worked on, which added a lot about white supremacy into that one, because we were kind of helping try and merge the two. And they presented that one, and then we just decided to go ahead and keep ours in there. And that's kind of the scoop. But if there's anything else, I'm happy to answer questions about. I do, we didn't have any people of color working on this, and it was brought up a few times in the meetings. And I guess I have questions around that, because I also think it's white people's work to do this work, but maybe it could have been written as white people working to undo white supremacy, something like that. But I don't know what to think about that.
Well, what I imagine, so the way I imagine, knowing you a little bit and knowing the First UU NOLA folks, is that if you had kind of proceeded with the white supremacy one, right, you would have then elicited feedback and support and engagement from the communities that we're accountable to when we're talking about white supremacy, right?
Yeah, except that none of us have ever done a CSAI. So we were encouraged to do this by Tafiya Christoph Rogers, who has been to something like 28 GAs and knows the process really well and is on the CSW team, I guess. Uh-huh. so she kind of helped us, but no, I have concerns about whether we would have been able to do that too, because um, we didn't really know what we were doing, and we weren't really fired up about doing it. We're working on restorative justice for the 4 men that were involved in the attack on the 2 UUA staffers at last GA. That's what we've been focused on for the last year. So I would like to say, yeah, we would have remembered to do that, but here we are, you know,
Right.
2 weeks away, and we haven't.
Right. And
So,
I do think that the CSAI process, a lot of people get into it kind of like for the first time, and they are like, I've talked to a lot of people who did it the first time, and they didn't really know that, like, you don't know, right? So, like, you don't know how you're supposed to, right? Like, your congregation's supposed to do it, and then, but you're supposed to have other whatever. I honestly don't know completely what I's need to be dotted and what T's need to be crossed in that process. I've only done it essentially from GA onward, and done like the amendment piece of it and the advocacy piece of it. So, okay. So yeah, like I said, the steering committee consents to support this. We realize that it would have had more work done to it, and we think that there are some things maybe still missing, and maybe things need to be redrafted a little bit. So we will be working with you all, and we are calling on other people to give some feedback and perspective. Because what I would really like to see, and I think ARE would like to see, and all of us might really like to see, is a CSAI on white supremacy coming to GA and being a viable, you know, of something viable to vote on. And I also feel that it is important to have a little bit of the history, so people, like, the way it would look to me, right? It would look almost like the opposite of what happened. And that is, like, they saw your CSAI, or no, you saw their CSAI, and you said, oh, no, we just want to do the white supremacy piece of it, so we'll just take the white supremacy pieces of it and we'll put it in our CSAI. That's how it looks to me on initial reading. And I think that it is important for the delegates, regardless of what they choose to support, I think it's important for the delegates to understand kind of the history of a thing, and that isn't what that CSAI was, and it's actually almost a little bit of an opposite story. So we'll be talking about that with people who come up to the ARE booth. I do expect some questions, so people who are working the ARE booth, please be informed and know that they're and we will be working to propose changes via amendment in the mini assembly. And if that works, and it may very well, then I think that the draft that comes out of it will be something that we could really sink our teeth into as a congregational study action issue, right? So I think the timing right now is really, really important. I think with the controversies last year, I think with the white supremacy teach-ins, with the fact, like Christina Rivera said recently on Facebook, this year, white supremacy is mentioned 26 times in the UUA program book. And last year it was only 2. And that is, I can only look at that as progress of sorts. So I think that this is work that our denomination really would need to do as groundwork for what is to come, for the world that is to come, right? So, so now we're getting into does anybody have any questions for Leslie, or have any thoughts about this whole thing or whatever before we get into just kind of an overview of potential trouble spots, this being one of them? I guess not. See, we're so thorough, Leslie. We're so thorough. Um, so the last thing on the agenda that I have is quote unquote possible trouble. And I do want to go over, ARE is sponsoring the Christian Hegemony workshop with Paul Cavell. Some time back, there were people who were concerned about the original workshop description, which we agreed was problematic and was changed by both by both Paul Cavell and the program committee that does GA stuff, right, for the GA planning committee. I don't know who's who, but they reworked a description. I understand that there was some confusion about, they do sound like very different workshops, and I agree that they sound like very different workshops. I do believe that the current description is actually more accurate than the original description was, and I encourage people to attend. We were in conversation with several UU Christians about this issue, and we will continue to be in conversations with them. We will have members of the steering committee in the workshop in case certain people's concerns are correct, and maybe some people who are a little bit into Christian bashing show up. If that's the case, then the steering committee is very committed to absolutely redirecting that. That will not be what is appropriate in this workshop. Paul Cavell is a longtime anti-racist scholar, and he has been doing work in this area. And I think that hearing perspectives that are broader than just like the core are really, really important as we develop collective analysis. So again, that could be a little bit of a trouble spot. Please, if people have questions or concerns or whatever, please do refer them to the ARE booth. Steering committee members are absolutely prepared to be in conversation with people and to address this issue also. One of my things that I just learned the other day, thanks to a post from Ronnie Boyd, who posted the flyer on the drum track, is that in the workshop descriptions and the longer descriptions in the program book, and also in the listings, topical guide, etc., it is not mentioned that the drum track is people of color exclusive. It is. I did not pick up on it because it is not mentioned. I was a little bit surprised that their worship was not people of color exclusive or not shown to be. I thought, wow, are they opening the doors this year? So one of the workshops looked really, really interesting. So I put that in ARE recommendations, and luckily I saw Ronnie's post. So we have taken that off ARE recommendations. In the program book, in the drum track, it does show that those workshops are people of color exclusive, but that is only listed on the drum page. What we are asking ARE members to do is kind of get it out by word of mouth. We're also going to be requesting some messaging from the podium by the moderators to be really, really clear that the drum workshops are, I believe there's going to be signage outside their room, etc. But if you are like me or like some other people who are just in a rush to like, what are they going to next? And they look at the program description, I do have an expectation that some people are going to show up outside the workshop and say, but it doesn't say, right? Because it doesn't say. So that's just something we want to spread the word about. I think we're going to probably have their flyer at the ARE booth and be really kind of loud about that. And we'll be doing some social media posting. And then the last, I don't want to say possible trouble spot, but it will be work for ARE to really engage in. And that is the Commission on Institutional Change will be having focus groups. And they are concerned that some people might be upset by either the content or what happens there or whatever. We don't know if those will be expressions of white fragility, if those will be, genuinely triggering things. we have no idea, but they have reached out to ARE for support in that matter. So we are going to be having some chaplains kind of on call for that, so we don't exhaust the General Assembly chaplains. And also we are going to be asking some laity to step up who are well suited to kind of be with people when they're struggling with whatever they're struggling, for whatever reason they're struggling. I think that this is a way that ARE can be of real useful service to the General Assembly and to our fellow GA attendees who who may not have as much of a formation as some of us do, and are struggling with things that we think should be easy, but they're not. So if anybody wants to do that, again, there is a sign up for volunteers for volunteers for ARE. It's just a general sign up. And if you're interested in doing that work, please make a note on your sign up. We would love to have people, just be at the ready to have some little bit more pastoral conversations than usually happen at the ARE booth. And then the last trouble spot will be the CSAI. More so, I think we can fix a lot of it through the process, but I also do believe there will be many people who kind of read through it, who get confused, and if we can do advocacy at our booth and be very clear about why ARE is supporting this and how these two are different, then that will be helpful, because I think that there could be a lot of confusion. So that is pretty much kind of the overview. If there are any more specific questions about any of those things or any other things that I didn't cover, if anybody wants to ask them, that would be great. Y'all make me feel so thorough. So with that, I'm going to stop recording, and we're going to have a few deeper conversations about some other complicated things at GA that we're not going to, that don't need to be on this recording. So thank you very much for those who joined us, and thank you very much for those who are viewing. And if you have any questions, please write to the team at uuare.org, and we will do our very best to answer them or to point to people who know what they're doing. So